Even when we are pedaling as fast as we possibly can, there can still be that lingering feeling of, why does it feel like I'm working so hard and not feeling any movement toward what I want? Part of the answer lives inside this third vital question, because the question isn't really about activity. It's about direction. It's about whether our actions are helping us create something or simply helping us cope with what already exists. Welcome to Oxygen for Educators. I'm one of your hosts, Michelle Kinder. It's our hope to bring you thought-provoking, unscripted conversations full of actionable ideas to fuel your important work in the world. Thanks for tuning in. This space is for you. Hi everyone, I'm Michelle Kinder, and welcome back to our series on the 3 vital questions transforming workplace drama, which is the work of David Emerald and Donna Zhejiang. Over the last 2 episodes, we've explored the first 2 vital questions. Where are you putting your focus, and how are you relating? Today, we arrive at the third and final question, which is, what actions are you taking? Most of us are taking action all day long, but David and Donna invite us to ask a deeper question. The deeper interpretation of this question is, are we taking action in service of what we want to create? Or are we mostly taking action from a reactive, unconscious place? Action that is often designed to reduce the anxiety we feel created by our problems, rather than move us toward our preferred future. We can be incredibly productive and still make very little progress toward what matters most. We can spend an entire day addressing immediate needs and still arrive at the end of the day exhausted and not feeling meaningfully closer to the future we hope to create. I think a lot of educators know exactly what I'm talking about. The to-do list gets done, the calendar gets managed, the crisis gets handled, and it can even feel good in the moment because we get shots of adrenaline. And also, that constant churn is socially rewarded. Many of us have been conditioned to believe that if we're moving fast, we're making progress. But movement and creation are not the same thing. Urgency and direction are not the same thing. Even when we are pedaling as fast as we possibly can, there can still be that lingering feeling of, why does it feel like I'm working so hard and not feeling any movement toward what I want? Part of the answer lives inside this third vital question, because the question isn't really about activity. It's about direction. It's about whether our actions are helping us create something or simply helping us cope with what already exists. One of the concepts David and Donna teach in relation to this third vital question of what are we creating or what actions are we taking is called dynamic tension. And while that sounds like a technical term, it's describing a very human experience. Every meaningful thing I've ever wanted has required me to spend time in the gap between where I am and where I want to be. The gap between the relationship I have and the relationship I want, or the leader I am and the leader I'm becoming. And this also applies to more macro issues like the culture we have and the culture we're trying to create. What this question asks us to pay attention to is the gap between today's reality and tomorrow's possibility. If you've ever wanted something deeply, you know this gap. Most of us spend a lot of our lives trying to get rid of that gap or ignore it, or sometimes we even pathologize it. But that dynamic tension, that space between where we are and where we want to be, offers us so much. It fuels creativity and innovation. It can be an animating force. Imagine what your internal experience would be if there was no gap, no growth, or no striving. It does sound nice to have all we could ever want, but our souls would not thrive in that space. Our life force would atrophy. The invitation of this third vital question is to understand dynamic tension and learn how to work with it. Tension between what we have and what we want is evidence that something matters to us, that we are growing, that we are trying to create something that doesn't yet exist. In David and Donna's work, the tension means you're creating. Think about it. If there is no gap between what you want and what currently exists, there isn't much reason to create anything. If you think about action planning as having a progression, the first step is to get really clear about what you want, your vision, your preferred future. Most of us, with a little time, a little space, a little intentionality, are good at arriving at this vision. The second step is to tell yourself the truth about where things currently stand in relation to that vision. And this can be challenging, but also hugely relieving to own the truth about your situation, because it brings you back into alignment and integrity. The part of this work that can easily be missed is the alchemy of learning how to hold both at the same time. A clear vision of what you want and a candid articulation of where things are. Possibility and reality. Can I stay connected to what I want without pretending things are better than they are? Can I tell myself the truth about where things stand without giving up on the boldest vision of what I wish for? One of the reasons so many people are exhausted right now is that they're spending enormous energy fighting reality. It's completely understandable and even a common coping strategy to not look hard realities directly in the face. Dynamic tension asks us to stop arguing with reality and start creating from it. Because reality is the starting point for creation. We can't create from the reality we wish existed. We can only create from the reality that is actually here. When David teaches this concept, he often uses a simple image of a rubber band stretched between two fingers. One finger represents what you want to create, that outcome that matters to you, and then the other finger represents the current reality, where things actually stand today. And the tension in the rubber band holding those two apart is dynamic tension. Most of us have a complicated relationship with tension. We feel and experience tension and we immediately assume it's a problem. We assume something is wrong, that we're behind, that we should have it figured out by now, that if we're doing this correctly, we wouldn't feel so uncomfortable. So if we start looking for ways to make the tension go away, we're right in line with cultural norms. But David and Donna are teaching something very different. They're teaching us how to use the tension, how to work with it instead of against it, how to let it pull us toward what matters rather than spending all of our energy trying to escape it. In fact, one of the biggest shifts this work offers is the realization that dynamic tension is not evidence that something is wrong. It is often evidence that something meaningful is underway. You're trying to create a healthier relationship, a stronger team, a different future, a new version of yourself. Of course, there's tension. You're creating. And once you understand that, the question changes from, how do I get rid of this feeling, to, how do I use it? And just like that taut rubber band, when we sit in that dynamic tension and the experience of it starts to build, it can feel a lot like anxiety. And if we don't have this 3 vital questions frame that gives us a healthy respect for staying in the tension, we will look for an exit ramp from the work. And there are 3 common exit ramps. 2 of them will sabotage you, and 1 will set you up to move toward your preferred future. The first exit ramp we will be tempted to take is to water down the dream. Maybe I don't need a great relationship. Maybe a tolerable relationship is enough. Or maybe I don't need a fun and thriving workplace. I'll just put my head down and get through the day. It's so tricky because this exit ramp does relieve the tension. So it can feel like a sound move to water down your vision. Picture the visual of the rubber band. If I move my hand closer, if I move the hand that represents my preferred vision closer by watering down my dream, the rubber band does loosen up. I do experience some relief, but that doesn't mean it's taking me somewhere. Because watering down my vision deflates my energy. I mean, who wants to work toward a meh dream? There's no incentive. So perhaps I do feel less anxious, but I also feel less motivated and more muted, and sometimes even depressed or despondent because I just don't care about what I'm working toward. The second exit ramp that we might take when we misunderstand the magic of dynamic tension is to leave your bold vision intact, but fail to tell yourself the truthiest truth about your current reality, minimizing or pretending or just failing to assess reality with clear eyes. So if you picture the rubber band, that would be moving the other hand, the hand that represents telling the truth about current reality, toward the center. Of course, it does give more room in the rubber band, so it does reduce the tension, but it sabotages us because misdiagnosing our current reality also means that the action steps you identify may fall very flat because they're misaligned with reality. If I have the goal of running a marathon, but I can't run a mile, if my action step is to run 15 miles tomorrow, that's going to fall flat because it's misaligned with reality. If I have the goal of running a marathon, I have to tell myself the truth about how much I can currently run, and my action steps have to come from that place. Meaningful action depends on reality, not the reality we wish we had, but the reality we actually have. So those first two exit ramps, watering down the dream and avoiding reality, those two don't work. They will sabotage you, even though in the short term they do feel like relief. Then the natural question is, what does work? What is this third way of managing the anxiety that comes with dynamic tension that is actually recommended? So this third exit ramp that is recommended, that will help you move forward, involves keeping the vision bold, telling yourself the truth about current reality, and then asking yourself a simple but powerful question, which is, what's next? And listen, I'm not talking about mapping out what's next for 5 years or what's next for the entire organization, what's next for the rest of your life. Much more simple than that. Just what's next? What's the next conversation, the next step, the next experiment, the next act of courage, the next thing that would move me even 1 inch closer to what I want to create? There's something deeply compassionate about that question because it meets us where we are. It doesn't require certainty, mastery, or any kind of crystal ball. It just asks us to take responsibility for the next step. And it asks us to trust ourselves. So this 3 vital questions work helps us think about what comes next. But Donna adds another aspect that I think deepens the work even further. And she does this in all of her work, but very pointedly in her book that is called Who Do You Want to Be on the Way to What You Want? This question expands the conversation in an important way, because most of us are used to spending time thinking about what we want. But Donna invites us to ask, who do I want to be while I'm moving toward that outcome? I mean, let's face it, meaningful goals place demands on us, and they don't just ask us to kind of like just do something dispassionately. They ask something of us on a soul level. Life is shaping us whether we're paying attention or not. The question is whether we're bringing any intentionality to that process, because sometimes we become so focused on arriving somewhere that we lose sight of who we are becoming on the journey. And when I think about the educators I know, I see this all the time. Educators become so focused on helping students, leading teams, supporting families, improving outcomes, solving problems, and carrying responsibility that it can be hard to stop and ask, what is all of this asking of me? Who is this work inviting me to become? That's the part of what makes this third question so nuanced. It's not simply asking, what action should I take? It's also inviting us to consider, who do I want to become on my way to my preferred future? And the outcome, of course, matters, but so does the person we're becoming while we pursue it. In fact, sometimes the most important thing created through dynamic tension isn't the outcome itself. It's us. It's the growth that happens as we learn to stay connected to what matters, tell ourselves the truth about where we are, and keep taking the next step. When I think about my own life, some of the most meaningful experiences have not simply changed my circumstances, they changed me. And that's what I appreciate about Donna's question. It reminds us that creating a preferred future isn't just about arriving somewhere. It's also about becoming someone. Let me share an example of what this might look like. At the end of 2025, I was navigating some health challenges that have thankfully resolved. There was a period after diagnosis when I knew exactly what I wanted. I wanted healing. I wanted health, peace for my family. I wanted my life back. And I also didn't want to waste a good crisis. I wanted to grow and learn and change. I wasn't just learning how to navigate a health challenge. I was learning something about myself through it. Because every difficult season asks something of us. It asks us to decide how we want to participate in the experience. There were so many days when I just wanted certainty. I wanted answers. I wanted to fast forward to the part where everything was okay, but that wasn't available. What was available was the opportunity to decide how I wanted to meet the moment, how I wanted to treat myself and the people around me, what parts of me I wanted fear to have access to, and who I wanted to be in a season I never would have chosen. Because of this work, I was intentional about telling myself the truth about where things currently stood. For months, every day there was a significant gap between where I was and where I wanted to be, and I had a choice. I could pretend that my health wasn't as central to me as it is. I could spend my energy arguing with reality, or I could ask, what's next? And sometimes that next step was gathering information or going for a walk or resting, making a decision, or thanking my amazing husband for the way he cared for me. And none of those next steps in isolation solved anything, but they moved me forward. And looking back, I think one of the gifts of that experience was realizing that progress and certainty are not the same thing. I rarely had certainty, but I could almost always identify a next step. And over time, I learned that I didn't need certainty to move forward. I just needed enough clarity to take the next step. I just kept asking, what's next? And how do I want to show up in the face of that? Who do I want to be in the face of a situation I wouldn't sign up for? If your clarity about what's next comes from first being bold about what you want and radically candid about what you have, then you can trust it to produce meaningful, life-giving next steps, big and small ones. Creating is iterative. Most of the time it looks ordinary. One conversation, one boundary, a decision, a repaired relationship, a brave moment, one next step, and then another and another. Creating our preferred future happens one choice at a time until one day you realize you've traveled much farther than you thought possible. If you're feeling the tension between where things are and where you want them to be, maybe that's not evidence that something is wrong. Maybe it's evidence that you are creating. What do you want? What do you have? And what's next? And maybe most importantly, who do you want to be on your way to what you want? Thank you so much for joining me for this series on the 3 vital questions. There's tons more information from Donna and the team online Please check into it if you're finding yourself intrigued by this work. I really hope these conversations help you notice where you're putting your focus, how you're relating, and the actions that you're taking. And most of all, I hope they help you remember that even in the middle of uncertainty, you have more agency than you think. We're going to take a little break from these shorter episodes, but stay tuned for season 3 interviews, which will be released every 2 weeks starting next Friday. Thank you so much. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Oxygen for Educators. Please like, share, and follow, and if inclined, leave us a 5-star review so that we can keep making content for you. Let us hear from you if you know someone we should interview or a topic we should cover.
The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the guest and host and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of any organization. The content is provided for informational and educational purposes only and is not intended as professional advice. Listeners are encouraged to use their own judgment and seek appropriate professional support when needed. Oxygen for Educators, its host, and production partners are not responsible for any actions taken based on the information shared in this podcast.